Welcome everybody to the War and Peace Fantasy Baseball Podcast. I'm Alex Uwe, and I'm joined today by Ray Estrada. What's up, Ray?
Nothing much, man. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. We ready to do this thing? We're ready to talk some fantasy baseball?
Yeah, actually, like at 11 o'clock in the morning, not 11 o'clock at night for once.
Yeah, I know. This is probably the healthier way to go about it, but, you know, habits are habits, and we're going to stick to them for the most part. But yeah, this one, not going to get out quite in time for, you know, you to get your Friday lineups out there, sadly. But I don't think it's going to make that big of a difference, to be honest. So I think we're pretty good. We'll get right into the news here in just a moment. I've got to do the news! All right, so let's keep the show going here, and we'll talk about some non-fantasy baseball news. How about that? Yay! Let's start off with the talk of the town, the Tigers-Yankees brawl. Everybody's got an opinion. Everybody thinks they're right, and a lot of people don't care, and a lot of people probably shouldn't care, because it was a whole lot of nonsense and a whole lot of fighting. So I'll give a brief overview of what happened. Gary Sanchez is good at baseball. Gary Sanchez gets hit by baseball, tempers flare, and then other people get hit by baseballs. Dellin Betances hits person with baseball in the head accidentally. I think that was after.
It was after
the brawl. So the brawl happened somewhere in the middle there. I think Tommy Kahnle threw at Miguel Cabrera, didn't actually hit him. Everything seemed fine, and then all of a sudden, pushing and shoving and punching, cheap shots were thrown, and then a couple more batters getting hit later on in the game. So there's going to be suspensions, to be sure. I guess that's relevant, if nothing else. Probably Gary Sanchez, probably Miguel Cabrera, and probably Alex Wilson was one of the pitchers that hit a batter after the whole incident.
He hit Frazier in the ninth inning.
And so is Dellin Betances. I don't know if those guys are going to get suspended for that. They got ejected from the game, obviously, at the time. But I don't see anything really long-term for those guys anyway, unless you think something different. Do you think those guys are getting
No, I can maybe see something for Wilson just because he said he did throw it intentionally, but Betances obviously wasn't intentional. But if Wilson does get suspended, it's not going to be that long. I think the biggest one is going to be Sanchez, and then probably next is Cabrera.
Yeah, and Austin Romine was kind of in the mix there, starting stuff. I don't know if he's going to get a suspension, kind of like a zero tolerance thing. Miggy threw hands first, but Romine was, egging him on, and then he ended up taking him down, and it was a good and proper fight. There was a lot of actual stuff landing. Yeah, and I didn't notice anything else in that scruff for any obvious ejections or suspensions there.
No, nobody else was. I mean, I don't know how they missed it. Sanchez sucker punches. So Miggy's on the ground. Castellanos is trying to get Miggy up and off or whatever. And then Sanchez comes in and clearly throws a huge uppercut at Miguel Cabrera while he's on the ground. And then later, Castellanos is somehow ripped off and then brought to ground. And then Sanchez goes and punches Castellanos, who was never trying to fight anybody in the first place. So that was the most interesting thing. And I know Rudy has a different take. I'm on the Miguel Cabrera side. I know he threw punches first. That's not the best look, but I know Rudy has a much different take.
So you're saying the Tigers were in. I guess nobody's right in this case. But
I'm not saying they're right, but I'm saying if Romine didn't
You're saying the Tigers are justified and the Yankees aren't?
I think they both have legitimate reasons. It's not clear one way or the other, but I mean, Miguel Cabrera was fine with getting thrown at. That wasn't the issue. It was Romine getting in his face, and according to Cabrera, looking like he wanted the fight. So Cabrera basically gave him what he wanted, and then Romine decided that he couldn't actually match hands with Cabrera, so he decided to take him down.
Oh yeah, good guy Miggy. He was just doing what Austin Romine wanted, right? He wasn't doing anything.
Yeah.
For his own selfish purposes. But geez, it's not
really, it's not a good look from either side. But
I mean, the Yankees had every right to be upset in that circumstance, and the Tigers handled it really poorly. Also, the Tigers were just, they were crazy. They were like, why did Miguel Cabrera have to do anything there? That's one of the veterans of our game who should have understood that this scruff really had no basis to continue. I mean, Fulmer hit Gary Sanchez, which, at the time kind of looked intentional, and I understand that when the adrenaline's pumping, you'll do things that you're not necessarily going to stand behind later, that you're going to regret. Fulmer claims he didn't hit Sanchez on purpose, which, I believe after the fact, but, in the moment, I bet there was some part of him that really wanted to just drill the guy for taking him deep earlier on. And that's no big deal. He didn't headhunt, he didn't do anything, unspeakably awful, and then everybody else just decided to take it into their own hands and keep starting shit. And I also found it ridiculous that Alex Wilson in the last inning, in the ninth inning, was it the 8th or 9th inning?
It was the 9th inning. It was like 2 outs in the 9th inning.
In the 9th inning, he hit Todd Frazier, got himself ejected, and Gary Sanchez is up. You didn't want to waste your bullet for the guy who sucker punched 2 of your own players. Come on, even if you're for fighting, even if you're pro baseball brawls, those people should be upset that the Tigers didn't even go after the right guy.
Exactly.
I think that this is going to be irrelevant in a week's time. I think Gary Sanchez, Miguel Cabrera will get their suspensions. I can't imagine any of them being longer than like 5 to 10 days, which is a big deal for the Yankees anyway. But he can just appeal it longer if he needs to. They need it on the field. There's always things that these players can do. Nothing's gonna happen like right away. Nobody's suspended like right now. These things take time. I guess that's all in that story about the brawl specifically. But we can use this as an opportunity to talk about Gary Sanchez and how unbelievable his month of August has been for the second straight year. I think I speak with appropriate excitement when I'm saying that Gary Sanchez has hit 11 home runs this month for the second consecutive year in his only 2 big league seasons, and it is only August 25th today, so he has a chance to really add on to that total as well. Do you think Gary Sanchez is, in the long term, going to be closer to what we see in August or closer to what we see the rest of the time, where he's, he's not really doing much unless he's hitting homers every day?
That's a very interesting question, because it is kind of weird how well he performs in August, and granted, a small sample size, but I don't know what it is about August. When's his birthday?
I don't know.
His birthday's in December. His birthday's in December. That makes no sense.
Is that actually a thing where players hit better on their birthdays? I've never heard of that. Maybe on their birthday, but
I'm just trying to find some type of trend to see why August is so good to him. And to answer your question, I would probably call it somewhere in between. He's not going to hit 320 and hit 11 home runs in just under a full month. He's had 4 in the last 3-game series at Detroit. But yeah, I think August is above his standard, I would say. But
it's above anybody's standard. I'm wondering more so if you think he's going to continue to be this kind of crazy streaky player, or if he's gonna.
I think that's exactly what he is. I think he's a streaky player because he can get in trouble with strikeouts a lot, and I know that we're having less and less issues with strikeouts, but in terms of when he does strike out a lot, he has production issues. because we look at August and he's struck out 23 times this month.
Is that even a lot nowadays? I don't even know what normal is anymore for striking out in a month.
Actually, that's actually one of his highest months so far.
Okay.
Considering, but well, then that kind of ruins what I just said. But it seems like there are times he's always. I'll rephrase it. He strikes out a lot, but then the actual production comes and goes around those strikeouts with him. Is my assessment of Gary Sanchez.
Same can be said for most power hitters, I would say, but at this point, he's the best catcher in baseball. I mean, Buster Posey is probably more reliable, and in a redraft, you still might take Posey ahead of Sanchez just if you want that kind of stability. But if you want to own a catcher who's going to hit 11 homers in a month at any given time, I know it's been August both these years. He did hit 9 in September last year. That's just because his rookie year was unbelievable. People say it's just August, but no, I think it's just when he's comfortable, he's going to hit a lot of homers, and you have to want that. This is a very desirable streaky player, I would say. There's some risky ones out there. This guy's not really so much of a risk. It looks like he's going to put up the numbers. Those end of the season totals are going to be there. That's how I see him. I think.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as
catcher,
I would call Posey number one because he is more reliable. Posey's hitting over 300. He's top 10 batting average in the league, but Sanchez is the best power catcher on the market. Right?
Yeah. Well, obviously the best power catcher, and I'm not going to undersell what Gary Sanchez has been doing. That is an incredible pace for any position player.
Yeah.
Period. I mean, he's much more valuable than Posey this season just because of what he's done. Obviously, in the last 30 days, he's blowing everybody else out of the water. I think you seriously have to consider Gary Sanchez as the number one catcher. It's just a matter of preference. If you prefer to be bold and go for the guy that's gonna, if he's on the field and he's doing his thing, he's gonna put up way better numbers, or if you're gonna take the guy who is just more stable, and that's what Posey is. So, do you agree with that?
Yeah, it is all about preference, in my opinion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's where we land there. So we'll keep everything rolling here. We'll talk about a couple very interesting and somewhat heartbreaking starts that happened earlier this week. And I guess I'll go in chronological order here, even though this one is probably the less memorable one. Doug Fister threw a complete game earlier this week. I know, you're hearing me correctly. Doug Fister threw a complete game against the Cleveland Indians. So not even against a cheap team, you could say. And he retired 27 straight batters in his complete game, which in your head should register, oh, that's a perfect game, right? Well, he retired 27 straight after giving up a leadoff home run to Francisco Lindor, and then proceeded to throw a perfect game. I cannot think of any specific time that's happened. I don't even know how I'd look that up. That would be one heck of a search, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Pitcher
throws perfect game after giving up leadoff home run. I think this is the only thing you're going to see if you searched that. But Rich and Doug Fister, good for him. I don't think that's the kind of pitcher anybody expects him to be going forward. There's not much to discuss in terms of Fister's value going forward. But the other pitcher is a little bit more important to fantasy owners, and that's Rich Hill, who I think everybody around baseball heard that Rich Hill was perfect for, 8 innings? 8 1/3 innings?
8 full innings. The first batter of the night.
Perfect baseball. And it really was, pretty perfect. He struck out 10 batters by the end of the night. He did not get a single ounce of run support, not even a fraction of a run, and he gave up a ground ball to the third baseman Logan Forsythe, who is not even a third baseman, but that is where the perfect game got broken up. An error was made on the play. Perfect game gone, no hitter intact. Finishes the inning. We go to the 10th. Still no run support for poor Rich Hill, and slots a fastball right down the middle to Josh Harrison, and it barely squeaks over the wall. Curtis Granderson almost makes the catch, but that's the ball game. Rich Hill loses. Perfect game gone. Shutout gone. Everything
No-hitter
is
gone.
Well, yeah, the no-hitter's gone as well. So I think as a Dodgers fan, you probably have some very mixed feelings right now. Obviously, you're really happy that Rich Hill is performing in this kind of way at his age, at this point in the season. And I think most of you is just really angry that the Dodgers couldn't get him any run support, that the Pirates had to be such spoil sports. What are your thoughts about Rich Hill in this performance?
I mean, despite the outcome, it was one of the all-time great starts. I mean, through 9 innings, he had 95 pitches, and there was a debate of should he come out for the 10th, and I thought, why not? He's 95 pitches, he's pitching well, and it was one mistake, and Granderson nearly caught that ball. And but yeah, I literally tweeted out why the Dodgers choose this game not to score. So that's the most frustrating thing, is that the one game where your guy was throwing a perfect game, no hitter, just couldn't get any offense going, and a part of that was great plays by the Pirates. But yeah, the offense was frustrating. I had no issue with them sending him out for the 10th. You're up freaking 20 games in the division. There's no not every game is essentially a must win for the Dodgers, if that makes sense. It's like, let's just go out and see what he can do. Jansen's not going to pitch tonight. Jansen wasn't available. You had Stripling warming up. It's like, let's just throw Rich Hill out there. He's got 95 pitches. I'm sure he had a short leash, and then.
Well, apparently he did have a short leash.
Well, yeah, I mean, we didn't get a chance to see how short of a leash he did have, but unfortunately, didn't throw his best pitch tonight, and it cost him. But I mean, can't take away from how great that start was.
Yeah, so I guess what I'm hearing is Dodgers fans are just spoiled by how many wins they get, how much run support they get, that they can't comprehend how they couldn't score a single run in a game where your pitcher's throwing a perfect game.
Yeah.
There's definitely got to be some kind of urgency there at that point. It's not just another game. Offense got to step it up. What's going on? And it's against the Pirates. The Pirates ran up. Trevor Williams was the starter for the Pirates. I know. You've probably never heard of him, but he threw, I think he threw 5 scoreless innings, and then the bullpen did the rest. Come on. That's a little bit sad. That's a lot sad, actually. For both Doug Fister and Rich Hill throwing games like they did, but just a little tiny blemish in the circumstances. Don't give them a spot in the history books, just for very, very small reasons. Single home run in each case destroyed their chance at history. I think there's no other way to put it. So let's keep talking about, let's keep talking here. Let's keep talking about, keep it talking. Let's keep talking. I think I said that 5 times now. Rhys Hoskins is the talk of the town. He has made the Phillies not the most depressing team in baseball anymore. I think that's safe to say. And I think he's at 8 homers now in his first. How many games has it been? It's been less than 2 weeks. He has 53 at bats. He has 8 homers in 53 at bats. That's just 15 games. That's more than a homer every other game for the rookie. So this guy is not the same caliber prospect, or he wasn't considered the same caliber prospect as your Yohan Moncadas and your Ahmed Rosarios. He wasn't considered that superstar level, but I think everybody's reconsidered at this point. Maybe lost in obscurity a little bit with the Phillies, but everything looks legit so far. He's got 10 walks and only 11 strikeouts in that time. His BABIP is insanely low. He's been hitting. He has a 283 batting average, and his BABIP is low because he's just been hitting so many homers. He's at a 206 BABIP right now. His OPS, of course, is staggeringly high. It's at a 1.16. I can't imagine how this guy is going to, either continue this, but I can't imagine him just completely falling off the table either, based on what I've seen. So for this month of September, where do you value Rhys Hoskins among some of the best first basemen in this game? Where does he stand?
Is he first baseman? He's listed as a left fielder on MLB.com.
Well, that's strange. I'm pretty sure he's a first baseman. Maybe he's playing left field. I think he is a first baseman though by trade.
Okay.
He might be playing left field. Considering the Phillies have holes everywhere. In the outfield, and they might still be using Tommy Joseph at first base. So that's interesting. Okay, well, I'm corrected there. Nonetheless, this kid's bad is what matters. So where does he rank up among some of the best left fielders and/or first basemen in baseball?
I wouldn't rank him as high simply because you never know when that adjustment is coming for the pitchers. He could keep the stretch going through the first 2 weeks of September, and then one pitcher figures him out, and then he is slumping for the rest of September. So the unknown about when, because that slump is coming. I mean, we all know this with young players, especially guys who aren't all world talents, essentially, not like top prospects coming out, and even those guys struggle. So I think he's looked very solid. I think he is worth a look. But if you're thinking about picking him up, I would be wary because you never know when that drop off is coming.
All right, well, I'll throw a few names at you to make this comparing game a little bit easier. Would you rather have him or Logan Morrison, who's basically completely halted the power production at this point? But
I would probably fly with Hoskins because he's hot right now.
Rhys Hoskins or Jose Abreu?
I'll take Abreu on that one.
I'll take Abreu there. What about Rhys Hoskins or Cody Bellinger, who is not currently active? He's on the DL right now with an ankle problem, but will likely be back for most of the month of September, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I take Bellinger because he has shown that. I know he's kind of having a power slump right now, but he made that readjustment very quick.
Yeah, well, I will say that he has played 14 games in left field, 2 at first base. I think he came up as a first baseman, and they need to play him in left field because they still have Tommy Joseph manning first base. So maybe I'll throw a few left fielders out there. How about Yoenis Cespedes? Would you rather have Rhys Hoskins or Yoenis Cespedes?
I'm going to go with known commodity and Cespedes.
Okay, even with the slightly higher injury risk.
Yeah, I mean, because I don't know. It's injury risk and slump risk essentially.
Yeah, I guess it's a good point because Cespedes is known to do very well this time of year down the stretch. Yeah, I don't have any other immediate comps, but I think that gauges where he is pretty well. Considering how close he is in most of these regards, he's probably right around Jose Abreu tier, in my opinion, for the rest of the year. Jose Abreu is really solid first baseman. I think that's very promising comp. I can kind of, based on just what I've seen at the very start of the season, it reminds me a lot of what Chris Bryant was able to do. And Chris Bryant was a little bit different in that his power stroke didn't come into play for, a few weeks until after he came up to the big leagues. But taking a lot of walks and being really careful, being really aware of that plate approach, and then he's already got that power stroke going in the major leagues. I think everything looks promising with this guy. Peripheral numbers, everything else, plate approach, just his poise out there. I think we're looking at a top first baseman for years to come.
Yeah, I think in the long run he's a very solid option. But if you're just looking for the stretch run to September, it's a little bit of a risk because of how new he is to the league.
Yeah, and I keep calling him a first baseman because I'm pretty sure he's not going to stick in the outfield. I think that's just where they're playing him right now to finish the season out. If he's playing, he's gonna play at the position he's comfortable at. Kind of like Bellinger. Bellinger's not a left fielder, but if he needs to play left to get in the lineup, that's what he'll do. So let's talk about a couple players that are very well known MVP caliber commodities. We're talking about one that's possibly up and coming, but now we'll talk about some players who've kind of returned to their MVP form. Actually, Manny Machado never won an MVP, but Manny Machado, definitely MVP caliber player, I can say, and Josh Donaldson also is tearing it up. Both these teams are still in the wild card hunt, kind of. I mean, everybody's in the wild card hunt in the American League, but these two players alone are making their teams much, much more of a threat. Donaldson and Machado seem to be homering every day. I think Machado had 2 walk-off home runs last week. So both of these players really were overlooked this first half because of either injury or underperformance. And anybody who felt unsure about owning these players, anybody who felt the need to trade them prematurely, are obviously regretting it at this point. These two are very interesting cases for next year, especially. Down the stretch, I think we know what we're going to get from them. Really top-tier MVP production. I think you can expect nothing less at this point. But next year, do you have any idea where you want to rank these guys among some of the other, more well-known fantasy baseball commodities like Goldschmidt and Altuve, Freddie Freeman, even guys that have really had good seasons for the entirety of this season?
I would put Donaldson higher than Machado. I would put Donaldson very close to the top of the list. Simply the difference between them being Donaldson had injury issues, so you can kind of see how that kind of slowed his production and how he went under the radar. Manny Machado just plain underperformed, and that's concerning in terms of a guy who has all-world talent, but when it kind of just slumps out of nowhere for most of the first half, that's a little more concerning. Whereas Donaldson was, I don't want to call it an excuse, but there was a reason why he was slumping, and he didn't have playing time, obviously. So I would rank Donaldson higher than Machado, but Machado's still up there simply because of his talent.
I think most people would disagree with you entirely. Most people out there would definitely much rather have the 25 going to be 26 years old Manny Machado instead of Josh Donaldson. I think Manny Machado is 26 now. He turned 26 like a month ago. But Josh Donaldson
he turned 25 in July.
Oh, he turned 25. He's going to be 26 next year. Got it.
Yeah.
Donaldson is 31 now, I believe. Definitely has that track record at this point. Everybody knows that he's an MVP caliber player. And I think more people are willing to take a flyer on a young player with that kind of talent who, despite having some incredible seasons already, people still feel like hasn't even hit his ceiling yet. I guess last year was the closest thing to that, where he just absolutely mashed. I think he hit 40 homers or 39 homers. He was up there in that territory. But, I think it's just the young versus the old controversy that, fantasy baseball owners have to face every year. I'm currently working on some premature rankings for next year. I think right now I have Machado ahead of Donaldson by a little bit. Injury risk matters. Injury risk matters more than people think. Donaldson definitely, his legs are not holding up the same way as they used to. So that's something to keep in mind as well. Both on the field healthy, I still will take Donaldson at this point. Even though Machado has been better over the last 30 days in terms of fantasy baseball.
I mean, they've both been unreal over the last 30 days.
Yeah, both of them top 10 over the last 30 days, but Machado even higher than Donaldson by a few spots. So that's something to keep in mind there, and I'm sure this conversation will be brought up again before next season starts. So with that, I think we'll move on to our next segment. We'll go ahead and give you a little injury update.
You have your ubulus muscle that connects to the upper dorsimus. It's boring.
Yeah, so we are going to talk about a few players that are really, really significant players. Normally, these injury updates, we throw out a couple of pitchers who are dealing with blisters or whatever. Some of these players are very big impact players. First guy, this just happened yesterday. Jose Altuve left the game with some back tightness, which is really disheartening because Jose Altuve always seemed like that untouchable player, right? He's always on the field every single day. I guess we felt the same way about Mike Trout for a while, and I guess this season showed us that no player is safe from the injury bug, and he leaves with discomfort. I think in the neck, more specifically, not just the back. He left the
left neck. Left neck or right neck?
I don't know. I have to find out if he hurt his left neck or his right neck.
This is a huge factor.
I know. If it's a right neck injury, I have no concerns, but if it's a left neck injury, that could be serious.
Yeah.
So I don't know how to move on from there. I don't know how serious it's going to be. Just factoring how far ahead the Astros are, they're definitely going to take it easy with Altuve down the stretch. Maybe more off days for a guy who seemingly never needs a day off. So if that's really important to you, if you need every single at-bat, and you have an important series or week coming up for your team, and Jose Altuve might miss a couple days out of a week, he might play 5 games, which he'll still probably be very valuable, but if, the quantity matters, that's something to consider as well. Another second baseman dealing with some problems is Robinson Cano. This time it's a hamstring problem. He's getting an MRI on his hamstring, and they have not released what the results of the MRI are. How convenient for us. But, Robinson Cano, say what you will about him, still one of the top fantasy options in the game. Yeah, still no news on the MRI as of right now. It's really hard to see two players at the same position of this caliber come out of games with such, seemingly minor but possibly, awful injuries. I don't think either of these are really awful long term for them, but the timing is really awful. Like, we need these players more than ever as fantasy owners, and now we're not sure if they're gonna play in 1 day, in 3 days, in a week. That's got to be the frustrating part, right?
Yeah, that's the thing when you have top tier fantasy guys, but they're struggling with playing time. That's very frustrating.
Yeah. So I think Cano's injury is a little more concerning than Altuve's, if we're going on that scale. What are you doing with Robinson Cano right now? He's day to day. He's not even on the DL yet. And do you risk having that, day-to-day status for, 4 or 5 days if this week's matchup's really important to you, if you're in a head-to-head league and you're heading into playoffs, and this week matters? Do you need to take action and pick up somebody who's actually playing every day?
I think if you don't have somebody on your bench who's playing every day, then maybe. But I think when a guy's day to day like this, you just always have to check: is he in the lineup or not? You have to kind of be on that.
Yeah, and in Cano's case, he's not just going to pop back into the lineup. They are being very careful with that hamstring. This kind of reminds me of the Ryan Braun situation where they just kept him day to day for so long earlier this year. He was dealing with, I think,
calf
injury, and also like a shoulder problem, something with his arm. Multiple little lingering things that they kept him day to day for, and you kind of knew that he wasn't going to play even though he was day to day. And that's the frustrating part, is when teams do that. I mean, you have a 10-day DL now. Come on, just use it. That's all I ask. So the next injury we'll talk about is probably the scariest one of these. Was Michael Conforto in a game yesterday. Took a swing at a fastball up and in and seemingly dislocated his shoulder and did some other damage in there as well. I think there is discussion that he will need surgery, so he is probably done for the year. That is, I don't know why we didn't start with Conforto. I think Altuve and Cano are, better players at this point, but Conforto is, I think, done. He's just been placed on the DL, and they're still trying to determine if he's going to return. They're not sure if surgery is needed. I think they say he is suffering from a dislocation in torn posterior capsule. That's the exact wording. That's not a good thing either way.
No.
And even if he, for some reason, is going to come back and play, which I seriously doubt he does, I don't think you'll need him by the time he comes back. I don't think he'll be as productive coming off of a shoulder injury, at least this year. I think they need to sit him down, get him that surgery he needs. Hopefully he can return to his form even after having shoulder surgery. Any thoughts on Conforto?
It sucks. He's had a lot of bad luck during his career, between having to sit behind money essentially, and he's always played well, and then this comes around just on a swing. So I think in terms of what you do with him in fantasy, he's done for the year. The Mets would be stupid to try and bring him back at all this year, surgery or not. I think just if you can afford to, in a keeper league, he might be worth it. But
he's definitely worth it in a keeper league. I think there's no doubt there.
But at the same time, you could, people might be wary of him in a redraft, so there is that to consider. But he's not coming back this year. He shouldn't. Like you said too, even if the Mets do rush him back, he's not going to produce like he did.
Yeah. Well, rest in peace, 2017 Michael Conforto.
Yep.
So, one more injury that I'll mention is with the Cardinals closer, Trevor Rosenthal. He is out for the season. Tommy John surgery for him. Really unfortunate because he seemed to bounce back almost entirely from, he was their top closer, and then he wasn't because he couldn't throw a single strike, and now he's throwing strikes again, and he's injured. So we won't see Rosenthal for quite a while, probably not till the end of next year at the earliest. He's probably going to miss, the entire next season even.
Yeah.
So, in terms of Cardinals closer situation, Sung-Hwan Oh, who's really struggled, is still there. He might get another crack at it. They have a few other options in the back end. Let me see if I can bring some light to the Cardinals closer situation. Let's see. They still could possibly run their, Brett Cecil still there. He's not really good either. Matt Bowman, Jonathan Broxton. Tyler Lyons is a younger relief pitcher who's been pitching well. He might get a crack up at the closer role right now. I think the Cardinals are going to go with the hot hand. That would be Lyons. And they'd probably have to give another shot up there as well. Not many other closer situation changes in recent days, so we're not going to do a whole lot of discussing with that. I will also mention that Uris Familia is back for the Mets, but they have not announced that AJ Ramos is going to lose his job yet. We'll see how long that lasts. So let's go ahead and move on to a quick segment of Here to Stay or Keep Away. Still don't have a cheesy little audio drop for that one, so we'll just start talking about it. Let's talk about one of the most controversial players over the last 2 or 3 years at this point, Byron Buxton. He seems to be on the upward swing yet again. He seems to do this every now and then where he shows signs of being really good. So, where are you with Byron Buxton right now? Are you buying, or are you still not convinced with this prospect?
I'm still selling on Buxton. He's done it to us before. Where like, oh, he's kind of finally coming around, and then he just becomes dismal again. You really have to see a lot more productive months like this in a row before you really buy in. This month he's batting .298, and that brings his yearly average up to .238. So and .330 on base this month of August, .301 total. So it's the overall inconsistencies, the wild inconsistencies with Buxton, just should scare most people away.
Yeah, I think when you look at players of this caliber, their defense and speed are their best tools, and it's hard to stay in the lineup when that's your only asset, or stay high enough in the lineup to get the production and counting numbers that you need. He's been hitting third in the lineup for the Twins a little bit here and there, so he has pushed his way up to the top of the lineup, which is where he needs to end up if he's going to be valuable. 22 stolen bases is nothing to shrug at. He's up to 10 home runs now, 5 of which came in like the last 15 days even. So it's really hard to say. He did this last year also in September, so we didn't actually get a chance to see him slow down at the end of the year. He finished the year hot. So if that's anything to take away, I think he's a safe enough bet to use this last month. He's going to give you some counting numbers here that he had not been able to provide, hitting 8th or 9th earlier in the season. And I really hope he's here to stay. My optimism has been crushed by this guy multiple times. So, if it happens, good for him, good for baseball. If not, it's just a lot of the same at that point. Right, next player I'll ask about is Adam Conley, who I ask about because last time out against the Mets, he struck out 11 batters, and this is a pitcher who doesn't strike out many batters. This weekend has another very favorable pitching matchup against the Padres at home in that big Miami ballpark. What do you think about Adam Conley for this start, or even for the rest of the year?
I like most pitchers against San Diego, just to throw that out there. Mm-hmm. But to be honest, I hadn't really heard much about him before today. But I mean, he seems solid enough. Sorry.
I understand how difficult it is to talk about a person who really has not made a name for himself in any way other than the fact that he has some good matchups going forward, and that's about it. The ERA and WHIP and strikeout rate are nothing impressive at all. He's got like a 4.93 ERA and a 1.41.
Yeah.
Way less than probably somewhere around 6 Ks per 9, probably even less. And he pitches for the Marlins, who really do have one of the better offenses in all of baseball right now, and that's been kind of under the radar. So I do obviously like him against the Padres. I am looking up the schedule for the Marlins in September, because that could be an important factor if you want to pick up Conley for the short term. They have a couple Nationals matchups in there that obviously you'll want to dodge. They could probably handle him pretty well. But they also get the Phillies, they get the Giants, they get the Mets again, they get the Padres again. So there's some very good matchups to exploit here in this last month. I don't even think you want to mess around with him against a team like the Nationals, though.
Yeah. And also, I don't know if you can answer this, but has he been up and down this year, or has he been hurt up and down to the minors?
So he's been up and down to the minors this year, and he was actually a pretty consistent starter last season, if I recall correctly. And that was his rookie year, I believe. Either last year or the year before was his rookie year. And he looked like he could be a solid option. He pitches very efficiently. He's a contact-oriented pitcher. He got quite a few Mark Burley comps, just with his approach. Same left-handed kind of, delivery, a little different body type, but didn't work out. He ended up giving up way too much contact, giving up a lot of hard hit contact, and it just wasn't the right time for him. When everybody's hitting for power, pitchers like that really do suffer. But it seems like he's found a way to keep hitters off balance enough to rack up some strikeout numbers that we're not used to. Normally, really disappointing strikeout numbers. Even, I'm not going to say his strikeout numbers recently are very impressive, but an 11 strikeout game, even against a team like the Mets, is something to keep your eye on. It means he's actively trying to strike batters out. It means that there's an approach there. And against the Giants, he struck out no batters. So, I think that's not what you want from your pitcher. You need strikeouts, especially in a fantasy league. Adam Conley is out there in essentially every league. He's owned in like 20% now just because of this matchup. I'm sure lots of people picked him up. But, keep an eye on it. If he does well, he might be worth it down the stretch. One more player we'll talk about, Corey Spangenberg, who has been doing what he's doing for a little while now. We're a little late to the party here. He's definitely owned in quite a few leagues at this point. But he's hitting for power. He's stealing bases. He's doing everything a fantasy owner could ask for the Padres. So I don't want to do this to you again. Do you have any insight on Corey Spangenberg, or is this just another case where he's doing what he's doing right now? You don't expect much long term.
Yeah, he's doing what he's doing right now. I don't think he's much more than kind of a inconsistent power guy who can run essentially. Averages nothing to. 272, which is not terrible, obviously, but only 325 on base, 433 slugging. He's nothing spectacular across the board. He does have speed, but he only has 8 stolen bases this year. Struck out 102 times, so only 25 or 26 walks.
Yeah, so with Spangenberg, you're not looking at a potential breakout star. I don't think anybody expects that. But these are some very valuable numbers to have. It's kind of a light version of what Whit Merrifield's been able to do, a little less batting average, but he has a lot of really nice eligibility. He has, in at least recent games, a lot more power than anybody expected. He's up to 13 homers. Maybe another good... He seems like one of those Diamondback utility players. He seems like a Chris Owings or a Brandon Drury type, where they'll give you lots of valuable numbers at a utility position, and they're playable on a daily basis because of that. So that's probably the best comp I can give right now. Nothing too special, but I definitely want him if he's out there. You can drop Carlos Gonzalez for him, obviously. Drop players like that. Drop players who are giving you nothing, and at least get a player who's going to give you a little something, even though it's not a superstar player. You can't always find a Reese Hoskins out on the waiver wire. So, I think that's a good option.
Yeah, his numbers are like I said, nothing spectacular, but there's nothing there that you're like, that worries you essentially.
Yeah. So before we wrap up the show, we'll give you a quick look at the weekend schedule. So Baltimore is in Fenway Park. That's always a big slugfest out there. I don't like any of the pitching matchups in this one. Chris Sale is not going to start there either. He got kind of lit up by the Indians yesterday. So no Chris Sale this weekend. Just a lot of Baltimore and Boston pitching against really good Baltimore-Boston offenses. So load up there if you can. I like Mark Trumbo in this one. I like Chris Davis even, which is somebody who I never suggest because of the strikeouts. But in this place, absolutely I'll take Chris Davis in this case. Tim Beckham has been on fire, even still. From the Red Sox side, pretty much everybody's there. Jackie Bradley is questionable, though, because he's been dealing with a thumb issue. So I think they've been using Benintendi in center field.
Yeah, they also picked up
everybody.
They also picked up Rajai Davis the other night.
Rajai Davis, if he does get a start here, if he gets enough starts this last month even, he can provide some good stolen base numbers. I would say less than he would have if he was still with the A's, but nonetheless, good stolen base guy still, even though everything else is pretty lacking. Tampa Bay is going away for some interleague play at St. Louis, who just lost their closer, as we mentioned earlier. Tampa Bay is still one of the worst lineups in baseball. Even right now, Logan Morrison, Corey Dickerson have basically shut off all forms of production. They have Kiermaier back. It doesn't seem to be doing enough for him. I like Cardinals pitchers in this one, obviously. I love National League pitchers against American League teams who lose their DH. So let's see who I can suggest from that series there specifically. Hold on a second. So they got Waka going on Friday, who has been very, very shaky lately. Nothing much to like with Waka, but this matchup might prove to be a different case. And then on Saturday, they will be using, I don't even know who they'll be using, but they'll be going against Blake Snell. And then Sunday, I don't think the matchup's set either for that day. But whoever they do end up using, I think it's Lance Lynn, actually. Even against a guy like Chris Archer, use Lance Lynn because it's the freaking Rays offense. That's all I gotta say there. And then Houston at Los Angeles. That's another important series for LA. And
the Angels.
Yes, I just assumed that was known, and it really should not have been assumed. Yeah, my bad there. But the Angels are still in wild card contention, not the Dodgers. But I do still love Astros pitching in this one. The Angels' offense is complete garbage still. If Mike Trout doesn't hit a home run off of you, then you're basically holding the Angels scoreless. Yeah, so that's how I feel. Use McHugh, use Morton if he's pitching this weekend. I'm not sure how they're slated up for Saturday, Sunday. Colin McHugh is pitching today, though. Yeah, so those are the the important matchups for the weekend. There's more, obviously, to look at, but we just gave you a quick preview. And that's going to do it for our show today. So, as always, we'd very much appreciate any feedback you have. Leave your reviews and comments for us. And ask us questions, because we would really like to answer any fantasy baseball questions you have. And we'll answer them here on the podcast. So if you have any questions, tweet them at WPB_podcast, or shoot us an email, warandpeacebaseball@gmail.com, or just comment it anywhere. We'll find it and we'll read it and we'll answer it. I also recommend you check out our website. It's got all our podcasts as well as some articles that we've been writing. A little bit slowed on the production of articles lately, but we'll still be turning out new articles, new fantasy baseball articles every so often, so keep an eye out for those. And yeah, that's all we have for today. So I think on that note, do you have any final thoughts, Ray, before we close things out here?
Dodgers first team to 90 wins, no other team to 80.
Wow, that's no other team to 80 wins, and
Nope.
The Dodgers are doing what they're doing. So that's a little bit insane. I think that's a good way to close it out on a positive note right there. Go Dodgers, I guess. I guess that's the thing. Yeah. So thanks for joining us, as always. Ray.
Peace.